Does anyone remember the era of the movie Teyon game? I remember a time where there was practically one out for each big movie studio Marvel, Warner Brothers, Disney, Pixar, and hardly any of them were really considered good. Sometimes you would get an X-Men Origins Wolverine, which was considered a God of War clone that was pretty good. And sometimes you get Sega's Thor God of Thunder, which also tried to be a God of War clone, but it was critically panned. Somewhere along the line, in the early 2010s, we stopped seeing the movie tie-in game almost altogether, and the industry rejoiced. Movie tie-in games were made on an incredibly short deadline. They were ported to every type of console to maximize those sweet profits, but along the way, people just stopped buying them. It became popular for online game critics to review these games just to tell their audience how bad they were. Marvel eventually ended their licensing deal with Sega, and other companies followed suit, ending production of their games. The trend may have died, but the concept surely survived. It was reborn. The movie tie-in game is now the movie franchise game. There are a few games out there now that can tie into their film universes. Star Wars has several canonical titles, and Marvel Spider-Man has ties to the Spider-Verse film saga. However, there is another genre of film that still has presence in the world of video games: 80s action movies. One fateful day, in February 2014, the folks at Teyon, a development studio, released Rambo the video game, and everyone, well, they hated it. Unsurprisingly so. I mean, the game was an underbaked and outdated on-rail shooter that did little justice to its namesake and was frequently cited as one of the worst games that year. However, that did not keep Teyon from trying again in 2019 in the form of Terminator Resistance, which had its flaws, but was generally received better than its predecessor. Most of these issues cite bugs, the lack of budget, graphics, the usual suspects for movie games. However, Teyon seemed to have a confidence boost and decided to go after another 80s action hero, RoboCop. On November 2nd, 2023, Teyon released their game RoboCop Rogue City to the world, and I decided to pick it up. The trailers made the game look fun, and I was hot off the heels of Cyberpunk 2077, The Phantom Liberty, and I needed to fill that void with another Cyberpunk-like game. So I bought RoboCop, brand new for $50 retail, and that wasn't that bad. RoboCop Rogue City is not exactly what I would call Game of the Year worthy personally, but I found that I had somewhat of an appreciation for this game. It is not a soulless cash grab and is made with love by some passionate developers who are clearly fans of the franchise. Graphics. The first thing most consumers will notice about your game is its style. I mean, how does the game look? Does it immerse you into the world? Are there some pretty sights? How do these characters look? Visuals are just very important, and while you don't need to have the most stunningly rendered thing ever, it is important that you put some effort, some way or another, whether you have a more modern take or a retro take. RoboCop is built in Unreal Engine 5, meaning the game is inherently going to look nice to a degree. While in combat, the Unreal Engine lends its power to action. Blood paints the walls, explosions are a bright fiery orange, the enemies will burst into bloody chunks when hit directly with powerful blasts. It's like a Doom fan's personal paradise. Unreal Engine 5 is the newest Unreal Engine, and I have played very few games that have been made on it, but Rogue City will be the first of many to take advantage. Rogue City also manages to faithfully adapt the movie sets. Old Detroit's police precinct is like a one-for-one recreation of the original film. The infamous steel mill, where the climactic confrontation between RoboCop and his killers has been rebuilt with a great amount of detail. Each of the characters from the original film are also present and have uncanny resemblances to their actors. The game does struggle with its stiff facial and character animations, making most NPCs come across looking just as robotic as RoboCop himself. There are performance issues, and if you're a console player, it might be preferable to play in a performance mode over quality. While having top-of-the-line graphics are great, dropping below 30 FPS is not. Hopefully there will be a stability patch planned, because it would be a shame to miss out on the full power of Unreal. Gameplay. If your game doesn't have good gameplay, you're doomed, that's a given. So how does Rogue City hold up? Playing as Robo feels fairly good, and the weightiness to the character makes you get an adrenaline rush as you start to feel invincible, which makes you want to destroy your enemies as you slowly close in on them. RoboCop is equipped with his signature weapon, the Auto 9, which can be tuned to your liking. I personally enjoyed unlocking the rapid fire mode, where all I had to do was hold down the right trigger and have fun. There's also an entire arsenal of weapons that adds a nice variety to gunplay. He can even rip off mounted turrets and use it like a regular weapon. It keeps combat fun and provides a solution for every encounter. RoboCop can grab and punch most enemies to score a quick kill. He can also pick up and throw most inanimate objects as well. It's very amusing. Seriously, I mean, who would not love hurling a full-on motorcycle at their enemies? Robo can also breach doors and certain structurally compromised walls, and he enters a slow motion mode that allows him to take down enemies with ease. The game loves doing this, by the way. Sometimes you'll just get a random slow motion kill out of nowhere, and you can even unlock a perk that allows Robo to activate this at will. Unfortunately, even with the fun gunplay and action, it eventually gets a little too repetitive for my tastes. The whole game has RoboCop going to various places and shooting up a nest of bad guys, and then you get a mission rating at the end, and that mission rating can net you more experience points for RoboCop based on the amount of side content you have participated in. There are some fun and silly side quests like working a desk at the police precinct or helping a guy find a movie at a video store only for gang members to come and shoot it up. But those two get old fast, and I didn't feel as interested in doing them as the game went on. Some core missions are still well done. First of which is when Robo must fight his way through biker gang-controlled territory and has some of the best combat encounters in the entire game. Another mission would be when RoboCop enters a mall to find the antagonist, only to start succumbing to his inner turmoil and begins to have some audio and visual hallucinations. Enemy design is a significant factor in terms of gameplay quality. What starts out decently strong ends up losing its spark toward the end of the game. The enemy variety is decent enough to provide a challenge. Some are your average grunt, some will rush you with a sledgehammer, and some will try to snipe you. The part where it falls off is when the game introduces armored enemies. These enemies, who are kitted out with SWAT gear, are supposed to be an added challenge to combat, but what they end up doing is ruining its pace. To really score a critical hit, you must aim for their legs. Okay, so whatever, but then you realize how much it detracts from the overall game. They're just not fun enemies to fight at all. I personally can't think of a single time I fought an armored enemy in an FPS focused game and went, wow, this is fun. It's one of my personal pet peeves. You know what else matters in your FPS game? The boss design. If you're going to include these encounters in your game, the goal needs to be on making it a fun challenge, not just hard. You fight one boss 3 times, the ED-209, and it's very easily exploited and a joke to fight. Hey, kinda like in the movie, right? Rogue City also includes a dialogue system like a Telltale game, where things RoboCop says and does will have influence over NPCs and their affinity towards him. However, it lacks any real depth, as most characters will respond to the thing they remember a few seconds later in a conversation, or their overall outcome in the epilogue will change. The team at Teyon that made the game is smaller than your average AAA dev, but they pack a lot of ambition. I think the game could have dropped the RPG-like mechanics and have had a lot more focus on being an FPS. Story. People love a good story in a video game, and Rogue Cities is passable. There is a deep inner turmoil with RoboCop's past life as Officer Alex Murphy as he struggles with his own humanity. This is reminiscent of the 1987 original scene where RoboCop returns to his home and reflects on his past life. The antagonist is a criminal named Wendell Antonowski, who is the brother of Emil Antonowski, who was one of the original killers of Alex Murphy in the movie. Antonowski is working with various other criminal organizations to stir up trouble in old Detroit, and his schemes always draw out RoboCop. After Wendell shoots and critically injures RoboCop's partner, Officer Ann Lewis, good job, Ann, you got shot again.
I'm a mess.
He takes on the case to find Antonowski and bring him to justice. The plot feels more basic and lacks some of the deeper themes of the original movie. The original had some excellent world building, which was covered as TV ads, news broadcast, and the TJ Laser Show. Those are present to a degree in Rogue City, but it lacks the overall presentation and is related to some of the voice work done for the game. Rogue City's voice acting is not awful, but it's also not great. Peter Weller reprises his role as RoboCop and is easily the best performance in the whole game with his iconic voice. The rest of the voice work varies. Some of it's good, some of it can be noticeably bad. The original cast put a lot of energy into each scene of the movie, which is just not simply present in Rogue City, which really hurts the overall storytelling. If you are a story-driven type, then be wary because it is the weakest feature of the game. The overall, should you buy RoboCop Rogue City? Fans of RoboCop will enjoy this game a lot. However, I'd recommend waiting for sale, because $50, while not a terrible asking price, is still a lot to pay for this game. Grabbing it for $40 or under would be a more justifiable purchase. Teyon made a good enough game at the end of the day, and there is exciting potential for this studio. I may not have loved RoboCop Rogue City, but I want to see more from this developer. My final score for RoboCop Rogue City is a 7 out of 10. While my adventures in the world of RoboCop are over, there are still more games in my list of reviews. So please, stop by next time when I delve deep into a certain video game about a group of villains turned heroes.